Miami Heat and Miami Heat fans got a double dose of bad news. And what is that bad news? Well, it's that these two pictured on screen, Terry Rozier and Jaime Jaquez Jr., have been absolutely abysmal for the Miami Heat. And because of that, the Heat's ceiling in this current roster and the state of this team is limited because you were anticipating that these two were going to have either a breakout second season in Miami or an improved second season. And both of them have been underwhelming to say the least. And we'll go through each player and their statistics and what has been going wrong for them. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below first. Which player concerns you more? Is it Terry Rozier, type the TRs, or is it Jaime Jaquez Jr., type the JJs? We're going to start with Jaime Jaquez Jr. and go through his struggles. And if I'm going to be honest, to answer the question I just asked you guys, I think Jaime Jaquez Jr. actually concerns me more because this is someone that you thought was going to be a pillar and a centerpiece of your roster in the way you build this organization over the next 5 to 7 years. The Jimmy Butler replacement when he eventually ended his time in Miami. Now, it might be sooner rather than later based on some reports, but either way, he has not looked like someone that can fill Jimmy Butler's shoes, and he has regressed heavily this season. You look at his numbers through the first 20 games of the season, and what stands out the most is the fact that he's only shooting 42% from the field and 25% from beyond the arc. He has been absolutely abysmal at terms of putting the ball in the basket. And what is the most concerning part to me is the difference from his rookie season to this year. We are exactly 20 games into the season for Jaime. Not Miami, but Triple J has played 20 games this year. Well, I wanted to look back at the first 20 games of Jaime's career last year and look at the difference in numbers. He averaged more points per game. He averaged just slightly more assists per game. But the point I wanted to show is the shooting percentage, because that's what concerns me the most about Jaime this year. He shot a full 10% better last season in his first 20 games and a full 14% better from beyond the arc. I don't understand what has happened, but he has gotten significantly worse offensively from year one to year two, at least in terms of how he has started his season in the first 20 games. And if we're going to be even more honest right now on Triple J, he's been borderline unplayable over the past week and a half because he is not giving you anything offensively, and he has been very mid on the defensive end of the floor. And it's not even like you could hang your hat on him saying like, oh, well, he's actually a good playmaker, and he draws a bunch of people to him defensively so he can kick out to open shooters. No, it's just been overall bad. And that is exemplified when you look at his shot chart from this season. It's a whole lot of light blue. And if you've been with the channel for quite a bit or just look at shot charts, dark blue, good, light blue, bad. You also just don't see a lot of dots. He's not even taking that many shots. But when you see a lot of light blue in the restricted area for someone who prides themselves as getting to the basket, getting to the rim and finishing, well, that's a concern. And when you look actually at the percentages for Jaime and not just the dots, it gets even worse because you didn't think it could be as bad as the dots show. But inside the restricted area, he's shooting exactly 50% from the field. League average is 59.4%. He is one of the worst finishers in the NBA at the rim. And like I mentioned just a second ago, his whole game is predicated at getting to the rim, using his size, his footwork at finishing around the rim. And then when you take a look at his three-point shooting, right corner three, he is atrocious. Right wing three, atrocious. Top of the key left wing, 1 of 5. He's 0 for 1, from the top of the key, 1 of 4 from the left wing. Left corner three is where he shoots the best. But the fact that he's a total 6 of 24 from the corners, the easiest shot in basketball, they say, and the most efficient shot in basketball, is just a joke. And it's kind of hard to fathom, if we're going to be honest. Based off what we saw from Jaime Jaquez Jr. last season, it is hard to believe the player that we have seen this year is the same guy. Like, we talked about how this guy can be a star and an all-star caliber player for the Miami Heat. That just has not been the case whatsoever. And I want to take it back to the offseason because in the offseason, we talked a lot about what Jaime Jaquez Jr. wanted to be improved on, what I wanted to see him improve on, and how he can elevate the Heat and win potentially Sixth Man of the Year. The three things that I needed him to improve on: three-point shooting, defending, and be a better playmaker and more confident with the ball in his hands rather than working off ball consistently, and that's really how the most of his shots came. Be a more isolation guy, be more of an initiator on the offensive end. Well, these are the three things, and, well, Jaime Jaquez Jr. shooting 0 for 3 on that. He has not done anything that we asked or thought he would do this past offseason in terms of improvement. You looked at the three-point numbers. They're worse than it is last season. And you looked at the playmaking. It's as worse as it was last season. I can't trust Jaime Jaquez Jr. with the ball in his hands in the first half, in the half court. Even in transition, sometimes he struggles. And when you think the defense can't get worse, it actually has. Going from last season to this season, and this isn't the first 20 games, this is all of last season compared to the first 20 games this season, his defensive rating, marginal, very marginal, but his defensive rating has got worse. The biggest drop-off is the offensive rating, all the way down to a 105.0. That's atrocious. He's no longer a positive basketball player. When I mentioned that he was borderline unplayable, well, you see it. He's a negative 7.4 right now when on the court for the Miami Heat. You can't play him. He went from what I thought was a Sixth Man of the Year favorite and candidate to the 8th, 9th man in the Miami Heat rotation because you're seeing Terry Rozier get in over him. You're seeing Drew Smith get over him. You're seeing Kevin Love borderline go in. And I know it's different positions, but you're 100% seeing Drew Smith and Terry Rozier go in over him right now. And we're going to talk about Terry in just a second. But he has been gross. And if we're going to be honest, I would think about playing Nikola Jovic more over Jaime Jaquez Jr. when he returns from his sprained ankle injury. And when Paul Larson returns from his injury, I would play him over Jaime Jaquez Jr. as well. It has been quite the fall-off for Triple J after being a top 3, top 5 Rookie of the Year candidate one season ago. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are going to have daily content surrounding the Miami Heat. We are under 200 subscribers away from hitting 16,000. Hit that sub button. Help us out because we're dropping daily content as well as going live for every Heat basketball game. Stay mellow, maybe, potentially. I don't know. Shout out to Mellow Seltzer. If you have any questions on Mellow Seltzer, hit me up on social media, Nic_Rohloff, my favorite drink. But maybe I need to relax. Mellow helps you do that. And allow Haime to go through a potential sophomore slump. Maybe I do because it has only been 20 games. And maybe he finally hits his stride and figures out what's going on and is able to hit his three-point shots. Maybe I do need to relax and give him some time. But at least as of right now, it's been very obvious he's been figured out by opposing teams because he can't shoot the three ball. He's shooting 25% from beyond the arc. And when teams are daring him to shoot it, he will not shoot it. Or if he does, he misses. And then they're just sitting on the drive and spin move. Like, I'm not going to claim I can defend Jaime Jaquez Jr. one bit. I'm only 6'2". He's 6'6", and he's much more athletic than I am. But I at least know what he's going to try to do every time he drives to the paint. If he drives left, he is not going to try to finish with his left hand. If he is driving left, he is trying to spin back to the middle of the floor and get to his right little hook shot and use his size over you. Well, defenders are sitting on that. So when he tries to spin, they cut him off, or they get their hands to where his hands are going to be and strip him, or get a really good contest. Like, everybody knows in the NBA, Haime is trying to get to his right hand. If he drives left, he's going to spin to his right hand. If he drives right, he's going to try to stop, play off 2 feet, pump fake and draw a foul, or bank it off the glass on a little running floater. It is so obvious. He's becoming one of the most predictable players in the NBA and definitely the most predictable player offensively on the Miami Heat. He's been figured out, and in turn, until he can find a counterpunch from beyond the arc or a different move that defenders aren't ready for, he is still going to be struggling on the offensive end. Let's transition it over to the second player that we're talking about today, and that is Terry Rozier, because he has been equally as bad for the Miami Heat this season. And he was the starting point guard coming into the year. He is now on the bench, and I thought that was going to change things, but it really hasn't happened to this point. And it's once again with Jaime, it's not the raw box score numbers. It's the efficiency. Because if Rozier was doing what he was doing off the bench, but efficiently, and Jaquez was doing what he's doing off the bench efficiently, there's no issues here. But we're not going to say sub 40%. 40% from the field and 35% from three from Terry Rozier is not good. And you want to talk about an unplayable player right now. Terry Rozier is right there with Haime as 1A and 1B because he is even worse defensively than Jaime Jaquez Jr. And he plays a guard position where he can't be as versatile. Jaime can at least, in his worst day, even though he's regressed a little bit defensively, can still be a league average defender guarding the 1, 2, and 3. Terry Rozier is a below average league defender, and he can only guard the 1 and 2. And when you look at his advanced numbers this season, he's also a net negative when on the floor. Negative 1.1 rating. The defensive rating isn't good. I was stunned to see Eric Spoelstra go to Terry Rozier late last night. Now, Drew Smith did foul out. That is why, or Drew Smith would have closed the game without a question, because he is playing much better. He's a better defender. He's hitting his catch-and-shoot three-pointers at a higher rate than Terry Rozier right now. And I thought Terry moving to the bench would have helped him. But it hasn't happened yet, and his shot selection still sucks. He does not take enough catch-and-shoot threes. He takes too many off the dribble. He cannot finish inside. He has been atrocious this season. And if we're going to be honest, he has been a whiff of a trade from Pat Riley. The first trade Pat Riley made at the trade deadline since Andre Iguodala and Jay Crowder in terms of acquiring players in 2019-2020 ends up being an absolute dud, trading Kyle Lowry's expiring contract and a first-round pick for Rozier. Did I applaud the move at the time? I did. I thought Terry was going to be good. I was wrong, and boy, oh boy, do I wish the Heat just let Kyle Lowry's expiring contract run out. You get the $29 million off the books that could have been used in free agency to either sign a true point guard like a Tyus Jones or retain a Caleb Martin or someone like that off the bench, and you would still have another draft pick to potentially trade as well. Man, that trade really could ultimately be the point where this build of Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and others gets broken up. And Pat Riley, you look back at this in 5 years, is the reason why the Heat have gotten stuck in the middle or below average in the NBA. We'll finish up the conversation on Terry Rozier in just a second, but what say you? Should the Heat trade Terry Rozier before the NBA trade deadline in early February? Type T for trade or type K for key. Before I tell you my thoughts on the matter, I want to look at some more shooting splits from Terry Rozier because it's just bad. Remember what we showed on Jaime Jaquez Jr. earlier in terms of him finishing in the restricted area? He was shooting 50%, which was 9.4% under league average of 59.4. Terry Rozier is worse, 47.9% in restricted area. I mean, we documented in the offseason that him and Tyler Hero were two of the worst guards at terms of finishing at the rim last season, both under league average. Terry was 5% under league average. Tyler was 9%. Well, Terry Rozier has regressed at finishing around the rim. He might be the worst guard in terms of finishing layups that I have ever watched in my life. The stats back it up. The eye tests back it up. He's been horrible. And then one of his calling cards last season was the pull-up mid-range, the step-back two. The Heat have kind of cut that out of their offense. But when Terry does still shoot that shot, which he thrived in last season, he's shooting 38.2%. He's been horrible. And the pull-up three, which it's going to be lower than a catch-and-shoot three. No matter who the player is, you always shoot better off the catch than off the dribble. And it's documented there with a 13 percentage differential. But the issue that I have is not the percentage differential. It's the attempts. He's shooting more off the dribble than he is off the catch. It's clear, Terry. You can't make a sidestep three. You can't make a catch or a step back three. He comes up short on every step back three. His sidestep threes don't even come close. Stop. Take them out of your shot profile. And maybe, just maybe, that 35% three-point shot that you've had this season improves to 38, 39%, and we can have a better conversation about a more efficient Terry Rozier coming off the bench. I'd rather him not take the step-back threes, the sidestep threes, than take them. Like, please stop shooting them, Terry. Please. He's been an absolute disaster. And we mentioned it just a second ago. that trade with Kyle Lowry and the 2027 first-round pick going to Charlotte for Terry Rozier, it could be looked on as the official endpoint in what really started the domino effect of Jimmy Butler getting traded and the Heat having to potentially rebuild. I don't know if all of that happens, but if it does happen, I think we can look back at a lot of things. The Damian Lillard missed trade, but the final nail in the coffin may have been trading a first-round pick and the expiring Kyle Lowry contract for Terry Rozier. And if you want to go back to that question I asked about should the Heat trade him this trade deadline, I think you absolutely should. If you can trade him for an expiring contract, because Rozier has one more year left on his deal. If you can trade Terry for expiring contracts that will come off the books and you can use in free agency this offseason, I think you do that without a question. Now, with that being said, I am not attaching a valuable draft asset to him. I am not trading a first-round pick to get rid of Terry Rozier. 2 second-round picks is what the Heat can trade. I would probably not attach both. I would attach maybe 1 second-round pick, either in 2026 or 2031, to move off of Terry Rozier if you're getting expiring contract back or contracts, or you're trying to improve your roster and you trade Rozier and Jaquez, plus maybe draft capital to get a more impactful player, maybe like a Cam Johnson or something like that from Brooklyn, well, then we can have a conversation about that. But in terms of just trading him away to get him off the roster, I am not attaching a valuable draft asset or 2 second-round picks to move off of him just because he stinks. I would rather just wait and unfortunately take it to next year where he becomes an expiring contract for the following season. All right, that'll do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed. We'll have videos going out the next 2 days, as well as being live on Friday for Heat Thunder. Make sure you are subscribed because we are bringing you more Heat content as the season ramps up, gets closer to trade deadline, and meaningful basketball is around the corner. They say the season starts around Christmas time. Well, here we are. So make sure you're subscribed and locked in.